Senator Cornyn.
Director Comey, is it appropriate for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to influence a presidential election?
Well, the FBI should do everything it can to avoid having any impact on an election of any kind, including a presidential election.
Are you aware of the allegation against you that your handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, your press conference on July the 5th, your subsequent announcement that based on Anthony Weiner's laptop information that you were reopening that investigation in the run-up to the election? Are you aware of the allegation that you were responsible for Hillary Clinton's defeat?
Yes, I'm aware of that allegation.
Does that concern you?
It concerns me whenever anyone has questions about whether the FBI is conducting itself in a competent, honest, independent way.
Did you call the Steele dossier salacious and unverified?
I called a portion of it that related to alleged sexual activity. I think that's the term I used to describe that.
You did not refer to it as unverified?
I think the term salacious and unverified, again, it's not all that important, but I think I reserved that for the sex part of it. The entire dossier was something we were trying to see if we could rule in, rule out. So the entire thing as to the FBI was unreviewed when it came in the door, and there was an effort to see what was true and wasn't true.
Short of Inspector Horowitz's report, are you aware of any verification of the Steele dossier by the FBI?
Sorry, Senator, I'm not tracking the question. I apologize.
We got a comprehensive report from Inspector General Horowitz on the Steele dossier, but before the Inspector General's report on the dossier, which tells us a lot about what we know now that we didn't know then, did you know that the information that was reported by Inspector Horowitz that should have raised questions about the reliability of the Steele dossier?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I learned a lot about the Steele material and the subsource interviews from the Horowitz report that I didn't know before then.
Can you rule out the possibility that the Crossfire Hurricane investigation was predicated in part on Russian disinformation?
I think so. I think both your colleagues on the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Mueller report and the Inspector General found that it was predicated based on credible information from a friendly foreign nation's ambassador.
So you're saying even though we know now that the subsource for the Steele investigation, or for the Steele dossier, was a Russian agent, that doesn't, in your view, taint any of the basis for that investigation?
First, I think I don't agree with your predication with respect to the FBI's investigation of the subsource, but the investigation wasn't open based on anything from Steele. It was open based on information from an allied ambassador about something a Trump foreign policy advisor said in London about the Russian offer to the campaign of dirt on Hillary Clinton. It wasn't until 2 months later that the Steele material came to the team.
The Steele dossier was used to secure a FISA warrant, correct?
Correct.
Back in January, after the election, the intelligence community submitted a report, intelligence community assessment. Do you recall that?
I do. The ICA from January 6th, I think, or 5th of
I think that's right. Do you recall a discussion between you and the CIA about whether the Steele dossier should be included as part of the intelligence community assessment?
I remember some interaction with my fellow leaders of the intelligence community agencies that were part of that assessment. I don't know whether it was over email or on the phone about how that we were contributing this material to the effort and how they were going to approach it.
You don't recall that Director Brennan said it should not be included as part of the ICA because it has not been verified?
I don't know whether it was Brennan. I remember being told that the group's view was it was significant enough and consistent enough with other intelligence that it ought to be included, but it wasn't sufficiently corroborated to be in the body of the intelligence community assessment. So they put a brief summary of it in an annex.
Mr. Comey, you're aware that when we try to reauthorize laws like the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is essential to our ability to protect the national security of the United States, there are members of this body and people on the outside who question whether Congress should have that authority, the intelligence community should have that authority, because they think those tools will be abused. Are you familiar generally with that?
Yes, I've participated in those reauthorization debates throughout a lot of my career.
I know you have. Does it concern you at all, as a former leader in the intelligence community, as director of the FBI, that the questions that have come up as a result of the Horowitz Inspector General report, the information we know now about the flaws in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, including the use of the Steele dossier, the inclusion of less than complete and accurate information by an FBI attorney as part of the predicate for that? Does it concern you that the questions that have been raised here will make it harder, perhaps even impossible, for Congress to come together and reauthorize important tools like the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act?
Yes, and it concerns me even more that the Inspector General found mistakes in every FISA application that he reviewed, well beyond the particular case we've been talking about. So yes, it concerns me.